The modern diet, which is full of refined foods, trans fats, and sugars, is at the root of degenerative diseases such as obesity, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and depression. Paleo is based on eating lean proteins for optimal immune function, fruits and vegetables for antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, and healthy fats, particularly omega 3 fatty acids. The theory behind paleo is that hunter gatherers used to eat vegetables, fish and meat primarily, and that was the way it was, and they didn't suffer from a lot of disease. However, they did suffer from disease, but it is proved that the modern human digestive system aren't as capable of handling the refined sugars, starchy carbs, grains, legumes, and dairy products that have snuck into our diets over the past 10,000 years. For example, eating wild meat is an important component of paleo because it is a remarkably lean um, uh, it is remarkably lean and has relatively low amounts of saturated fats while supplying significant amounts of beneficial omega 3 fats such as EPA and DHA. Increasing your intake of vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, and lean proteins while cutting down refined sugars, processed foods, and bread can lead to serious health benefits, but you would be losing a lot of carbs and calcium. So, people that want to boost their energy and lose fat, in essence, are targeted with a paleo diet. Health benefits do include solving issues like diabetes or irritable bowel syndrome and reducing LDL cholesterol, preventing chronic illness like diabetes and heart disease, and shrinking belly fat. It is clear that diets that are rich in fruits, vegetables, lean protein, omega 3, and polysaturated fats improve the body's ability to make use of the food rather than to store it as fat or keep it lingering in the bloodstream as excess energy. The rationale behind eliminating these starchy carbs in the paleo diet is supported by studies finding that they spike blood sugar more severely than fructose, which is the sugar molecule found in fruits and veggies, and the low carb profile paleo does dial down inflammation in tissues by altering the composition of fatty acids. However, grains, nuts, and legumes are rich sources of the anti-nutrient phytate, which protects the DNA from damage. It has anti-cancer properties and reduces bioavailability of heavy metals like cadmium and lead. And it is also said that grinding grains into flour is an old practice that has come from more than 30,000 years ago. So now I'm going to talk about two studies. The first, where there was 29 participants, each with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. Some were on the paleo diet, some were on a Mediterranean-style diet, and the people on the paleo diet did do better on the oral glucose tolerance test at the end of 12 weeks of being on this diet versus those on the Mediterranean diet. The second study is in 2014. A Dutch researcher compared the paleo diet to the Dutch Health Council guidelines diet, and again, the paleo diet did have a reduction of symptoms that are associated with heart disease and type 2 diabetes. And finally, for my third study, 8 out of 9 participants did have a direct response when switched to the paleo diet, where they improved their status of circulatory, carbohydrate, and lipid metabolism physiology, and even a short-term consumption of paleo diets can improve BP, glucose tolerance, decrease insulin secretion, and process and increase insulin sensitivity and improve lipid profiles without weight loss in healthy humans. However, there's a lot of support against paleo as well, because paleo is focused that our body did not evolve since the hunter-gatherers, but there's a lot of different evidence that evolution is actually ongoing among different groups depending on what their ancestors did eat. Groups that did not depend on cattle, such as the Chinese and Thai, the Pima Indians of the American Southwest, and the Bantu of West Africa, remain lactose intolerant. Populations that traditionally ate more starchy foods, such as the Hadza, have more copies of the gene than Yakut meat eaters of Siberia, and their saliva helps break down starches before the food reaches their stomachs. So there's a lot of different ways that people digest food depending where their ancestors come from. Now we're going to be looking at digestion, circulation, and immune system more closely, seeing how paleo affects each system individually. Protein is digested in part by hydraulic acid, HCl, in your stomach. A lot of people don't produce enough HCl when they first start eating paleo because their bodies aren't accustomed to all that protein. When you supplement with HCl and digestive enzymes for a while, your body often starts creating enough of those things on its own again. Without HCl and enzymes, your food just rots in your digestive system, causing bloating, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation, or gas. There's a lot of different things that can be problematic because of paleo. Increasing your intake of FODMAPs can be something that will irritate your gut. The other problem with paleo is that a lot of people don't take medication, don't see their doctors when dealing with a really bad disease like Crohn's or a thyroid condition. This diet alone cannot necessarily fix everything, and those people should be treated by a medical professional as well. And the other part here is that there's this thing called cytokines, which alert the system, your body, to attack. And for some people, the result is diarrhea, bloating, gas, or reflux focused in the belly. For others, depending on genetic tendencies, the outcome of cytokines can be anything from feeling like you have the flu to irritability to menstrual cramps, frequent urination, high blood pressure, heart disease. And yeah, that can be all caused by eating a non-paleo diet. So now we'll talk about circulation. And refined carbohydrates are rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream, causing risky spikes in blood sugar and insulin levels. Most common chronic diseases of Western civilization have been tied to these types of really delicious and addictive carbohydrates. Refined carbohydrates are forms of sugars and starches that don't exist in nature. They do come from natural whole foods, but they have been altered in a way or processed to be refined. So they end up being crystals, syrups, and powders. Now, circulation can be improved with paleo and can also ease hypertension because refined sugars and starches add to oxidative stress, insulin resistance, and immune dysfunction to hypertension as closely linked to a trio of inflammatory conditions. Insulin resistance generate the increase of oxidative stress and lead to the release of inflammatory cytokines, decrease nitric oxide production, and promote inflammation. The next part here is that paleo does increase your insulin sensitivity. The pancreas, which is an organ that regulates the blood sugar, secretes insulin in response to high blood sugar and cells stimulated by insulin. Insulin sensitivity is a general phenomenon in the body and can be measured in a few ways through studies. The pancreas secretes insulin in response to high blood sugar and cells and can absorb sugar when stimulated by insulin. Insulin sensitivity is a relationship between how much insulin needs to be produced in order to deposit a certain amount of glucose. You are insulin sensitive if a small amount of insulin is needed to be secreted to deposit a certain amount of glucose, and insulin resistant if a lot of insulin needs to be secreted to deposit the same amount of glucose. My next part here, we're going to be talking about immune systems. So the paleo diet naturally provides the foods that will add muscle and keep your insulin sensitive, which will ensure your fat cells stay compact. Triglycerides are a type of fat, a type of lipid found in your blood. When you eat, your body converts any calories it doesn't need to use right away into triglycerides. The triglycerides are stored into fat cells. Later, hormones release triglycerides for energy between meals. If you regularly eat more calories than you burn, particularly easy calories like carbohydrates or fats, you may have high triglycerides. Foods high in sugar and saturated fats can spur inflammation. The large focus on omega-3 fatty acids is one of the reasons why this diet is so anti-inflammatory. Pasture-raised animals have a much better ratio of omega-3 to 6, and the other veggies and herbs encouraged with the paleo diet will help as well. Inflammation is a part of the body's immune response. Without it, we can't heal. But when it's out of control, as with a type of arthritis, it can damage the body. But it's thought to play a role in obesity, heart disease, and cancer. And finally, the levels of the vitamin B12 may be reduced by fermented foods. A Bulgarian report indicated that the bacteria within yogurt use the B12 for their own growth. The B12 is kefir, a fermented milk drink, decreases in proportion to its fermentation. Instead of adding nutritional benefits to the food, fermentation decreases some vitamins and mineral availability. In conclusion, there are proven positive effects of this diet, which include reduction of inflammation, stabilization of blood sugar, reduction in LDL cholesterol, and more. But there's also limited evidence to its effectiveness and whether or not the limitation of certain foods would benefit every individual. Because the study is so focused on the evolutionary aspect that has been disproven, there are still benefits that will just come naturally from cutting out refined foods and starchy foods out of your diet. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.